You can sit over there. This table's for actual family. My niece sneered, gesturing toward a stool by the restroom. Everyone chuckled while I ate in silence. Then the cake, catering, and venue invoice landed. $3,800. The planner approached me. I just sipped my drink and announced, "Ask the actual family." I, 32M, thought I was doing the right thing by my family. Turns out, I was just the ATM. The restaurant was packed for my sister's birthday celebration. 30-plus family members crowded around 3 pushed-together tables, laughing and catching up. I arrived 20 minutes late after getting held up at work, scanning the room for an empty chair. My niece spotted me first. She was my sister's eldest, 24 years old and fresh out of college with that particular brand of confidence that comes from never having paid a bill. She looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain before gesturing toward a lone bar stool positioned awkwardly near the restroom entrance. She told me I could sit over there, that this table was for actual family. The words hit like a slap, but what came next was worse. The ripple of chuckles that spread across both tables. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even my own sister cracked smiles. Nobody said anything in my defense. Nobody even looked uncomfortable. I stood there for a moment, processing the humiliation. Then I walked to that stool by the restroom, ordered a beer, and ate my appetizer in silence while my family celebrated without me. The thing is, I'd been planning this party for weeks. My sister mentioned wanting something special for her 50th, so I reached out to a party planner, secured the private dining room, arranged the catering, ordered the custom cake. The whole 9 yards. I figured I'd surprise everyone by taking care of everything. It was going to be my gift to her. But sitting there alone, watching my family laugh and bond at their actual family table, something shifted inside me. I pulled out my phone and texted the party planner, asking her to bring the invoice when she stopped by later to check on things. The party continued around me. More relatives arrived and were warmly welcomed to squeeze in at the main tables. The conversations flowed freely, work stories, family gossip, memories of past birthdays. I might as well have been invisible except when someone needed to squeeze past my stool to reach the bathroom. My sister stood up to give a speech about how grateful she was for everyone being there, how family meant everything to her, how these moments reminded her what truly mattered. She thanked everyone for making her day special. Her eyes swept the room and landed on me for exactly half a second before moving on. The cake arrived, a beautiful 3-tier creation with handwritten messages. Everyone oohed and awed as the planner set it up, taking photos and gathering around for the candle ceremony. I stayed on my stool, finishing my second beer and watching the show. That's when the planner approached me with a folder in her hands. She was a consummate professional who'd clearly picked up on the strange dynamics at play. She asked if I was ready to handle the invoice, speaking quietly so as not to interrupt the cake cutting. The total was $3,800. Premium catering for 35 people, the private room rental, the custom cake, service fees, gratuity. It had all added up exactly as quoted. I looked at the invoice, then at my family gathered around the birthday girl, then back at the planner. I told her she'd need to ask the actual family about payment. My voice was calm, conversational, but loud enough to carry across the room. The cake cutting paused. Conversations died mid-sentence. Every head turned toward me. The planner looked confused, asking if there had been some mistake since I was the one who had booked everything. I shook my head and explained that I'd just learned I wasn't actually family, so it wouldn't be appropriate for me to handle family expenses. My sister's face went through several expressions: confusion, realization, then panic. She asked what I meant, her voice tight with forced cheer. I gestured toward my niece and repeated her words from earlier about actual family, explaining that I was just following her guidance. The silence that followed was deafening. My niece had gone pale, suddenly very interested in her phone. Other family members started looking around awkwardly, finally understanding what had happened earlier. The planner stood there with her invoice, clearly wishing she was anywhere else. My sister tried to laugh it off, saying it had just been a joke, that of course I was family. But I was done. I finished my beer, stood up from my restroom stool, and told everyone to enjoy their family celebration. I reminded them that the invoice needed to be settled before they left. I walked out while they were still processing what had just happened. In my car, I turned off my phone and drove home, already knowing it would start ringing within minutes. Update 1. The fallout started immediately. By the time I got home, My phone had 17 missed calls and dozens of text messages. I ordered pizza and read through them while eating on my couch. My sister was furious, demanding I return immediately and pay the bill. She claimed I was ruining her birthday over a simple misunderstanding. My brother-in-law called me selfish and immature. Various cousins and aunts chimed in with their opinions about family obligations and appropriate responses to hurt feelings. But the most interesting messages came later in the evening. 3 separate family members quietly admitted they'd felt uncomfortable about how I'd been treated. One cousin said she'd wanted to speak up but didn't want to cause a scene. An aunt mentioned that she'd noticed I was always the one organizing and paying for family events. My niece finally texted around midnight. She apologized, claiming she'd been stressed about work and hadn't meant anything by her comment. She said it was just a joke that came out wrong. I didn't respond. The next morning brought more drama. My sister had apparently spent the evening frantically calling relatives to cobble together the money for the bill. The restaurant wouldn't let them leave without settling the invoice, and none of the actual family had come prepared to split a nearly $4,000 tab. She managed to scrape together enough cash and credit cards to cover it, but not without burning some bridges. Several family members were annoyed at being asked to pay for a party they hadn't planned or approved. Others questioned why they were being charged for what they thought was my sister's treat. My phone kept ringing, but I let it go to voicemail. I had work to catch up on and honestly needed the break from family drama. But the messages kept coming, some angry, some pleading, some trying to play mediator. Update 2. A week passed before I finally answered my sister's call. She'd left 6 voicemails, each one cycling through anger, guilt-tripping, and bargaining. When I finally picked up, her first words were about how I'd humiliated her in front of the entire family. I let her vent for a few minutes before asking if she'd enjoyed her cake. The question caught her off guard. She asked what I meant, and I explained that it had been exactly what she'd requested. 3 tiers, her favorite flavors, custom decorations. She'd posted photos of it all over social media with captions about how blessed she felt. The silence stretched long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Finally, she asked why I'd done all this. Not the party planning. She seemed to have forgotten that part entirely, but why I'd left them with the bill. I reminded her of what her daughter had said, how the whole table had laughed, how I'd spent 2 hours sitting alone by a restroom while my family celebrated without me. She tried to dismiss it again as a joke, saying I was being too sensitive. That's when I told her about the other family events. The graduation party I'd thrown for my nephew last year, $1,500. Our parents' anniversary celebration 2 years ago, $2,200. Her son's wedding shower that I'd hosted at my house, $800 in food and decorations. Christmas dinner for the past 3 years running. She'd never asked me to pay for any of it. I just stepped up each time because I thought that's what family did. But apparently, I'd been wrong about being family. She got quiet again, then asked what I wanted. An apology? Money back? I told her I didn't want anything except to be treated like an actual family member or left alone entirely. Her choice. The call ended with her saying she needed to think about things. That was fine by me. But the family gossip network was already spinning. I heard through my cousin that my niece was telling everyone I'd overreacted to a harmless comment, that I'd deliberately embarrassed the family over nothing, that I was being manipulative by holding money over everyone's heads. Meanwhile, my brother reached out independently. He'd heard about the party disaster and wanted my side of the story. After I explained everything, he was quiet for a long moment before admitting he'd wondered how I always managed to organize such elaborate family events on my salary. He also mentioned something interesting. Apparently, this wasn't the first time my niece had made comments about family hierarchy. She'd made similar remarks to spouses who'd married into the family, usually about who belonged where and who got to make decisions about family matters. Update 3. 3 weeks after the birthday disaster, my sister called again. This time, her tone was different, less combative, more deflated. She'd been doing some thinking, she said, and some talking with other family members. She'd spoken to our aunt, who'd pointed out that I'd been carrying the financial load for family events for years without anyone acknowledging it. She'd also had a long conversation with her daughter about appropriate behavior and family respect. My niece, it turned out, was dealing with some serious entitlement issues that extended beyond family gatherings. She'd been demanding money from her parents for everything from rent to car payments, while making decent money at her new job. The family party incident had been part of a larger pattern of treating certain people as beneath her consideration. My sister apologized, not the quick, surface-level sorry she'd offered before, but a real acknowledgement of what had happened. She admitted she'd gotten so used to me handling things that she'd stopped appreciating it. She'd also failed to check her daughter's behavior when it crossed lines. She offered to pay me back for the birthday party and asked if I'd consider rejoining family events. I told her I'd think about it, but things needed to change if I was going to participate in family functions again. First, if I was organizing or paying for something, I expected to be included in the planning and treated as an equal participant. No more restroom stools or outsider treatment. Second, if someone else wanted to take charge of an event, that was fine, but they needed to handle the full responsibility, planning, paying, and coordinating. I was done being a silent ATM. Third, family members who couldn't treat others with basic respect didn't get to benefit from my efforts or generosity. She agreed to all of it, though I could hear the hesitation in her voice when we got to the third point. But I was firm. I'd spent too many years enabling bad behavior by quietly absorbing the costs and consequences. The next family gathering was my nephew's graduation party 2 months later. My brother-in-law organized it this time, handling everything from venue booking to food ordering. It was smaller and simpler than what I usually arranged, but everyone seemed to enjoy themselves. I sat at the main table with everyone else. My niece was polite but distant, having apparently learned some boundaries during her conversations with her mother. The evening passed without incident, though I noticed several family members seemed to be walking on eggshells around me. After dinner, my sister pulled me aside and thanked me for coming. She said she'd realized how much work I'd been putting into family events over the years and how little appreciation I'd received for it. She also mentioned that having other people organize gatherings had been eye-opening. It was a lot more work than anyone had realized. I told her I was glad she understood, but I also wanted to make something clear. I hadn't walked away from the birthday party just because of hurt feelings or wounded pride. I'd walked away because I'd finally recognized that I'd been enabling a dynamic where my value to the family was purely financial. For years, I'd been the reliable one who would step up, pay up, and clean up after family events. But when push came to shove, I wasn't considered important enough to sit at the actual family table. That told me everything I needed to know about how I was really viewed. She nodded, looking uncomfortable but not arguing. We rejoined the group for cake and coffee, and I went home feeling cautiously optimistic about family relationships moving forward. 6 months later, things have settled into a new normal. I attend about half the family gatherings I'm invited to, usually the smaller ones or those organized by people I trust. I no longer automatically volunteer to handle logistics or costs, and I've noticed that events have become smaller but more authentic as a result. My relationship with my sister has improved, though it took time to rebuild trust. She's made genuine efforts to include me in planning when she hosts things, and has checked her daughter's attitude more than once when it started sliding back toward entitlement. My niece and I maintain a polite but distant relationship. She apologized formally a few months after the birthday incident, but it felt scripted rather than sincere. That's fine. I don't need her friendship, just basic civility at family functions. The most surprising outcome has been how other family members have stepped up. Without me automatically handling everything, cousins and aunts have started taking turns organizing gatherings. The events are simpler and less elaborate, but there's more shared ownership and participation. I've also become more selective about who I help and how. When my nephew needed money for textbooks last month, I was happy to help because he's always treated me with respect. When my niece hinted about needing assistance with a security deposit for a new apartment, I politely declined. The family birthday party disaster taught me something valuable about boundaries and self-respect. Sometimes you have to be willing to walk away from a table, even a family table, to find out where you really belong. And sometimes, the people who claim you're not actual family are the ones who end up learning what family really costs. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.